G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Nikitas Tsoukales. Is that right?
Perfect.
From RealTop, based in Boston, USA. Thanks for your time today, Nick.
Thanks for having me on, Troy. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can already tell.
Yeah, it is. You're based there in Boston, which is beautiful. I've been there 20 years ago. It's a lovely part of the USA.
It's getting cleaner than 20 years ago. It's a prettier place. Our foliage is worse, but we're working on it.
Yep. Let's start with how we know each other. I think I connected through LinkedIn with you. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Great. Well, tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
So I own a digital marketing agency. It's called RealTop. You can find us at realtop.com. Funny backstory. The reason I called the company RealTop was I really had this policy early on where I didn't want to deal with entrepreneurs that didn't want to dominate, that didn't want to be at the top. So I spent an absurd amount of money buying this domain for that reason. It was almost like a internal joke, but we're a digital marketing company. We help small to even large businesses just generate a lot more leads, specifically service businesses. We're not big in the e-commerce field yet, but service businesses where you have someone on a phone speaking to another person on a phone, or even face-to-face, generating good old-fashioned clientele. And we do that primarily doing, Google ads, SEO, Facebook ads, social media marketing. We run the gamut in terms of the types of services we do. They're obviously all online. And I would say our focus, our sweet spot is Google ads. We love Google ads. We've used Google ads to scale our own small businesses to become medium, large size businesses, as well as our clients' businesses. That's been our number one weapon of choice since we've started the agency and since I've been an entrepreneur myself.
Now that's great, because a lot of agencies, I guess, put Instagram or probably Facebook front and center as their main marketing arsenal, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And for obvious reasons, right? We're going where attention goes. And if attention is on Instagram and social, I think as of 2020, we don't have the 2021 numbers yet, but as of 2020, we're at like 2 hours and 50 minutes per day. So give or take 3 hours per day on social between the ages of 16 and 64. So if, any business in their right minds that wants to get in front of people, social is going to be where it's at. And you could do the billboards, you could still do magazines, you could do all those things. But when you look at the numbers, it's still, 15 to 25 times cheaper to put the same commercial up on social versus TV. So you're there. My whole shtick is, for a lot of businesses that I work with, I first tell them, hey, let's get some of the low-hanging fruit. If there are a ton of people online searching for what you have to offer, they're already motivated.
Yeah.
Yes, they want what you have. Let's get in front of those people. Give them an ad that tells them exactly what they want to hear. Let's give them a website experience that's going to match the ad, which is going to match what they've typed into Google. And let's get those people. Let's get the low-hanging fruit first. And usually my phase one of digital marketing for a client is going to be Google because of that. It usually will take, traditional, more referral type business. It won't break their business. Okay. Meaning if you are in a service business and every 100 referrals you get, 80 of those people become customers. If you go to Facebook marketing sometimes, you might only have 10 of those inquiries turn into a customer. So that could be a bit of a shock to a traditional business, where Google, you might have 30 or 40% of those inquiries turn into a business. There's always going to be a bit more of a tire kicker syndrome from digital versus referral, but You simply get a very high quality customer. So we always make that a phase one. And I would suggest that for any small business looking to jump on digital, don't just think of maybe the cost per click and the cost per lead, but think of the shock to the business if you start introducing digital clients, what it's going to do, at least if you're trying to generate leads. Branding is a different thing, obviously.
Yeah. I just want to touch on two other areas that you guys provide: SEO and email marketing. The latter, email marketing, is still very relevant and powerful these days. I remember reading last year a book where the DMA, the Direct Marketing Association in the US, said for every dollar you invest in email marketing, you get $44 back, whereas the next one rung down was, I think, SEO at 22 and socials was 20. So a lot of people like thinking around SEO, they think email marketing is also something that's dying off or almost dead, but it is a very, very powerful digital marketing tool still, isn't it?
It's a huge digital marketing tool. And I remind clients sometimes that, especially the ones that are in business, hey, if you're still in business, you're successful, right? Because statistically speaking, you're all going out of business. So you're in business a few years later, pat yourself on the back, right?
Yep.
The second thing is you probably have some sort of book of business, past customers, past clients, partnerships, people inside of your network. You probably have a good 150 people that love, care, and want to see you succeed in that book of business. Now, if you were to take that 150, okay, and multiply times the 150 people that they know, you've got 22,500 people within a network. That's in Australia, that's a small soccer stadium, but here in the United States, that is a large soccer stadium's worth of people that you could tap into. And as long as you're creating a message that provides value for the end user, so if you're doing an email newsletter, for example, and you can simply ask yourself a question before you hit the send button, what's in it for them? Meaning You put together something of value and you send it out. You're staying top of mind, so you can check that box. Top of mind awareness, you can check it. But you can put a call to action in every single one of those valuable emails. And you can also put a simple message that asks them to refer you.
Yep.
And you have access to 22,500 people within a network. So we're not even talking about cold email strategies and fancy drip campaigns. This is your basic newsletter. And most businesses aren't doing it.
Yeah.
And it's free money.
Yeah, totally agree. And SEO, a lot of people think that's not relevant these days, and or just so much harder to do, but it's clearly something you provide your clients with.
I provide SEO to clients, but with a disclosure. Okay, I try to create a distinction, SEO versus PPC. So our big thing is search marketing, high intent. Okay, if you look at the top 4 spots of a Google search, it's always going to be an ad. And if you look at, if you go to your desktop and do a search, you're going to find that the majority of the real estate on that page when you do a search is going to be ads. So I tell people, if you're looking to get to your customers quickly tomorrow, it's always going to be Google ads. Okay. You're also going to have the majority of commercial transactions stemming from digital marketing. They're going to come through those ads, just high intent. They're clicking, they want it, right? But there is a place for SEO. But the caveat there is SEO is going to take some time. To get a really good SEO footprint, to get a really good footprint on Google for the relevant keywords, it's going to take a good 6 months, a year sometimes, depending on how big of an area that you want to target. So you want to understand that that's going to be your marathon of search marketing, whereas your ads, that's going to be your sprint, okay? And that's where you're going to make the register ring quickly. There's a place for each. But it wouldn't be one or the other.
Yep. No, I agree. I had one of my business partners on the podcast, episode 150. Tom, he's in London. We've got an IT support company over there. And I remember it was 13 years ago, I think it was, just before I moved back to Australia, I had a bet with Tom because at the time we were on page 72 of Google for a very competitive term, IT support London, as you'd expect. page 72. He loves his gin. And I said, if you can get us to page one of, this is me, doing management and strategy. If you can get us to page one within 3 months for that term, I'll buy you the best case of, gin that whatever you like to drink. He made it with 2 days to spare. Obviously,
no way.
Yeah. Well, he was very smart. He delegated to the team, got them to come up with really creative projects. We had Talkie the Toaster. Was an AI toaster in our server room that people could chat with, like a chat bot online. And several other projects just delegated to the other engineers, and did it with 2 days to spare. I was blown away. Yeah. So it was transformational for our marketing back then. I mean, back then, 13, 14 years ago.
You know what's interesting about that too? There's this misconception out there that SEO is free, and I always tell people nothing is free. You guys brought in the brigade. You commissioned your generals, your infantry, your cavalry to make this happen. There's a lot of legwork that goes into that, and legwork is expensive. There's sweat equity in there, but sweat costs.
Yep.
So even if you think SEO is free, you're going to spend money on the resources, on the content writing, on the chat bots, on the social signals, on the PR to have the high trust authority websites to link back to you. Yep. So there is a cost to SEO. It's just a little indirect versus PPC. Yes. And that's okay. That should be part of a plan.
Yep, absolutely. How did you start out, Nick?
Well, I started out, I started out, very young. I would say at 18, I started out in sales. I came from a very entrepreneurial family. My dad didn't have a job. My dad was the guy on the street that when you asked, hey, what's he do? There was always the guy, you looked at one house, that's a plumber, that's an architect, that's a lawyer. My dad was the guy that no one knew what he did. And I remember asking.
I have the same problem. My 8-year-old daughter, she's 8.5 now, and it's hard. I can't explain to her what I do. Can't explain to her friends what I do. Yeah.
Well, just tell her you're a celebrity podcaster now. Now you can say it.
Yeah, that's
So I remember growing up, and my dad didn't have a specific thing he did, but he had all these different businesses. Like he had donut shops. He had a provisions company. He had a thing he was doing once with doorknobs. Like he had all these things going on, and money would appear. And we always had nice things growing up. And I remember not understanding it. And when I was in high school, I was a little confused what I was supposed to be doing. I couldn't seem to find a vocation. In high school, they're like, pick your vocation. Then you're going to go to the school for that vocation. And that's what you will be for the rest of your life. And I had trouble doing that. I was like, wait a second. I'm an idiot. I just learned how to shave, and I have to pick my life right now. Yeah. Like there was like a pamphlet they gave out. I was like, this is insane. So I ended up going to a small community college. And while I was in the community college trying to figure out my life and what my vocation was going to be, a friend of mine was in real estate sales. And he was making, like, back then it was big bucks. I think he was making like $1,000 a week.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, this guy's a millionaire. This guy's rich. And he helped me get a job in real estate. And I was doing real estate rentals, and I loved that. And I learned marketing from that. Mm-hmm. And it was a hybrid business too, because they did internet marketing, but we did referrals as well. Mm-hmm. And then I took that into a career in mortgages. I worked for a company generating my own leads, which was phenomenal. I was a part marketer, part inside sales guy, which made me kind of dangerous, right? Because they had to pay me really good commissions on the business I brought in. And also, I wasn't completely at the mercy of my boss. If he ever fired me, it would kind of be his loss too, because I could generate my own business.
Yep.
And I love the idea that if I can control my own marketing, I can go anywhere I want. And I ended up leaving the mortgage business in 2008, 09, when the global financial crisis, like when the world was ending.
Yep.
And I decided to start my own mortgage company. And at the time, it was tough to get people approved because of the financial crisis. And I ended up transforming that sort of by mistake into a credit restoration business, and I loved it. I helped people through referral, which was my first love. And then I started implementing the marketing strategies I learned from managing mortgage call centers. And prior to that, my short career in real estate. And I brought it into that business. And although it was a small business, I got principles, marketing principles from a couple of very large businesses. And we grew from a 2-person operation to a 75, maybe 80-person operation. I still own that company today. It cranks. I don't work there anymore. The agency manages that company's marketing day to day. I would say they were our first client. And now I just do the digital marketing. I transitioned from that. I actually decided to delegate, and I ended up kind of delegating myself out of a job and got bored. Yeah, I got all this free time. I was like sitting on the couch. I was like, all right, I might as well get another job. So I started the marketing agency and started helping other companies, and here we are.
Well, it sounds like this is something you've got a real passion for. You really enjoy helping people with their marketing.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you're talking to a business owner that is, struggling to get to the next level, or sometimes even struggling to pay the bills, like they're in the red, and you can come in with 3 or 4 nuggets of wisdom or building out a campaign for them, and all of a sudden they're in the black, which is so satisfying.
Yeah,
they're making more money, and now they also have the hope that they can build this beautiful asset that they can one day sell. I mean, it's awesome. What's better than that?
Yeah. And how old were you when you started your first business?
I was 20. How old was I? It's a good question, actually. Let's see. I would say I was 21 years old when I managed my first mortgage office. The CEO didn't know how old I was, which was kind of funny. I looked older. So I would say I was about 24 when I started my first business.
Yep. Right. Great. And RealTop, you started that almost 2 years ago, was it?
About 2 years ago. Yeah, 2020, in the middle, in the thick of
COVID.
In the thick of COVID. Yeah.
Well, you seem to have a knack for timing businesses.
Well, it was interesting timing. I was really kind of worried about it, but there was a trend happening, and it hasn't changed, where a lot of very analog, old school businesses decided to go digital. So a lot of the clientele, I'd say half of the clientele we picked up, had never put a thing on Facebook. They barely even knew they had a website. They're like, oh, I have a website. Some guy made it. I think it's there. Can you see?
It's probably a MySpace page.
Yeah. It's exactly what it was. Yeah. So, we're taking these analog businesses digital, and that hasn't changed. I mean, you have people that were set in their ways that this global pandemic just changed them. People get on Google Meets now. It's no big deal. And Zoom calls. 2 years ago, you told someone, let's do a Google Meet, and it was 50-50 if they were going to jump on.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. The last 2 years, COVID's really pushed a lot of the online businesses that I'm across or involved with or friends have. I've been blown away with the increase in their top line, particularly in their sales, thanks to COVID. Obviously, it's pushing that transition of online shopping as well a lot faster than before. So it's great times.
It's become, it seems like even brick and mortar businesses, like in the old days, you bought a brick and mortar location, and what did you do? You went to the landlord and said, how many people drive by every day? And you did some math. Oh, how many people can I get in my door? Right? And you just did the math. And then what you do is you would show up with a surveyor, and you put a little black strip across the street to double check their math.
Yep.
And now those numbers have dramatically changed. So you can't rely on your storefront as much as you used to. Traffic patterns have changed. How people treat their main streets and their downtowns have changed. So now people are setting up storefronts. A lot of them are getting cheaper leases, but with the understanding that that traffic has changed, so they need to make their storefront more of a destination.
Yep.
And the only way to make it a destination is by marketing the heck out of your business.
Yep.
How do you get the phones to ring? And you go where the attention goes. And it's not, the attention isn't anymore driving down the main street because the traffic patterns have changed. Yep. So you go to Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah. Do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of RealTop in the last 2 years?
Yeah, I'll tell you, starting out in 2020, going into 2021, we had a 600% growth. We 6x 5x our clientele.
Yep.
We're super blessed. And one of the cool things was, the amount of referrals that came in from our current clients went up pretty dramatically. And then the average ticket. So we typically get paid on a retainer. And what we found was many of our clients came in to work with us on Google Ads, which is our specialty. But then they got into, social, and they got into email, they got into website development, updating their website. So we were blessed to see that every client that is with us is doing more with us. And that for us is an even bigger success than growing the number of clients.
Yep. And what about team members? Was it yourself that started out, and then what number of full-time equivalent team members are you up to now?
We started out myself wearing all the hats, and then go figure, right? Quickly, we added one person in year one. So it was a 2-person operation. We're up to 6 people, and we have a plan to grow to 10 within this year.
Right. That's really good growth. Yeah. When was the excuse me? When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
I'll tell you, the moment I felt like we succeeded, and would you mean specifically with this venture or in general?
No, just in your business career so far, I guess.
I think in my business career, and actually I know it's when we got that first Inc. magazine recognition, and that was a big one for me because to see you're on a stage with 5,000 businesses that are private, that have had to have a certain percentage in growth, out of millions and millions of businesses in the United States. For me, I could say that was validation for me that, hey, the inferiority complex, it's still there, of course, like every day. It's just, I don't know if it's a thing. But I would say that gave me some validation, like, hey, our efforts as a team, they've created something special, something that's bigger than me. I'm a nobody. I'm just like a cog in the wheel. But it was really a great validation for the talented and hardworking people at our company.
Yeah. Which business did Inc. cover?
So Key Credit Repair was our first venture.
Yeah.
And then it hit it 2 years in a row after that too.
Wow.
So we did everything in 3s. We did 3 years in a row, and that was even wilder.
Yep. Congratulations to you and the team. That's phenomenal success.
Thank you.
What does success look like to you?
Success for me is doing what I want to do when I want to do it, having that freedom. And I think that's a special thing. I have young kids now, and in my 20s, I was not very balanced. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's work. Let's go grind.
Gary V hustle mentality.
Yeah. And you know what? I know nobody wants to knock Gary V, but I'm going to knock him. I don't think it's sane. I think it's fluff. And I think it's a lot of let's do a motivational talk as people buy into it.
I think it's bullshit and dangerous.
Yeah, I think it's bullshit and dangerous. And I just think it's nuts. I like what Grant Cardone says. He doesn't believe in balance. He believes in doing everything to the 10x degree. If you're going to be a family guy, you're going to be the best family guy. You're going to
Yep.
be someone that gives to your church. Be the biggest giver to your church. Be the hardest worker, but also be the smartest worker as well, the smartest CEO. So you don't have to be a nut job. Do all those things that you have to do, but do them all the way. But that free time or the freedom of being able to spend with your family, especially when your kids are growing up, for me, that's been my greatest success. Money comes and goes.
Yeah.
It's real.
Perfect question for you. Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast growing business?
The number one thing I would recommend, and this is actually a little contrary to even my digital marketing agency, because realistically, we get paid to run ads for people, but I would say get your referral game on lockdown. We were talking before about the net promoter score. Like, how many of your customers are willing to refer you to another customer? I think that's got to be the number one thing you focus on, especially early on, where you don't have the revenue or you don't have the cash flow to put into paid ads.
Yeah.
How are you generating your business right now through referrals? What is the likelihood that your customers are going to refer you? If it's low, you got to look at your internal process and systems and satisfaction. So I would say that's number one thing. And then once you got that unlocked, then you got a real money machine. Take some of that revenue and reinvest that capital into your ads, into your SEO, but get your referral game on lockdown, for God's sakes.
I think that's great advice, because if you think about it, it then forces you to make sure that the products or services that you're delivering are excellent, because if your referrals are low, your proportion of referrals, then that's a signal to say you're fucking something up. So you need to fix it before you scale it, which is where the digital side of things can come in. So I think focusing on that referral first is really good advice.
Hey, Troy, I use this example sometimes, but I remember going to Rome and walking down these side streets, right? And the best restaurants we found when we were there, Rome and even in Florence, call it Italy in general, the best restaurants that we ate at had no signs. They were like speakeasies, for God's sake. They have no signs. They were in these dark alleys. Like, they could care less about their Google. They could care less about any of this stuff. And I sell it, right? This is my business. But they had perfected every plate that was served was so absolutely perfect. You couldn't help walking out of there and telling 20 of your friends.
Yep. And then they want to go there.
Now imagine the social experiment if we weren't allowed to do marketing. No commercials, no ads, no SEO, no radio, no nothing. And everyone was by referral. Imagine the quality of business that would happen, the products and the services, the amount of quality. It would go up so absolutely dramatic. And I think it's I think it's something we need to think about. If we were in a side alley with no sign and no marketing, what do we have? Are we good enough to keep growing?
Yep. Yeah, that's a great point. And how did you fund your business, or either of the main businesses, I guess?
There's a question.
Yeah.
I would say my first business was funded by, now this was the financial crisis of 0809. So initially I was like, I see this crisis coming, because I was part of the financial system. And you could just read the writing on the wall. I mean, a lot of people drink the fruit punch, but I could tell this isn't going to go well. So I had saved a bit of money, and then I had opened up credit lines everywhere. I mean, I had a credit card everywhere. What's interesting is halfway through getting my business launched, every single one of those credit lines got shut down. With the exception of, it was, a lot of the companies knew people were going to start maxing out credit cards. So my 100,000 in credit card allowance turned into something like 50. That was scary. So I maxed out a $50,000 credit card at the time. I didn't tell my young wife at the time, because I knew she'd have a heart attack. So I just kind of kept this secret to myself. I told her years later, and she agreed that it's good that I didn't tell her. Thankfully, she didn't divorce me. My life savings which at the time was only about $40,000. It's all I can muster up. My 401k, I wiped that clean. I wiped my credit cards clean. And then my parents were loving enough. My dad had enough faith in me then. He had enough faith for me then to say, hey, we have this. He had a commercial building in Boston. He said, hey, any money you need, just finance the building. And I remember going to him, Dad, that's insane. He goes, I have complete faith in you. You're going to succeed.
Yep.
And he said to me, so, and if you don't, who cares? It's just money.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. He gave me that permission to screw up.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then he gave me faith. He put faith in me that I didn't even have in myself at the time. And I was like, if this guy thinks I could do it, well, he must know something. He's 10,000 times smarter than me. So I just went for it. And I financed everything I could finance in my name, including part of, my dad's business. He was willing to put it up for me. And the gamble paid off.
Yep.
And here we are. But it could have gone south. I don't recommend anyone doing it, but that
walking into the casino and putting it all on black.
Yeah, you're putting it on yourself and you're putting it on the efforts. But I think there's some karma behind it too. If you're doing a good service, I think it can work out in some capacity.
If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
I don't think I would.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'd go into I don't think I'd go into any financial services industry.
Yep.
I definitely wouldn't. And that's actually a reason I started the marketing agency. I liked helping people, and I still like helping people, but I like even more working with other business owners.
Yep.
So I guess I can answer that question with my current business. I love doing what I do, and I love the relationships. Something to keep in mind for you fellow entrepreneurs, you're going to spend a good portion of your awake life, 8, 10, 20 hours, 30 hours a day in your business. Keep in mind the people you're selling to, these will be people you spend more time with than your spouses and your family and the people you love.
Yep.
Make sure those people you're selling to, you like, because if you don't, it's going to suck real bad.
Yep. Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Oh, yeah. Get your books in order early.
Yep.
A lot of salespeople are coming out of the sales world and they start, sales and marketing company, or you're a carpenter and you start a construction business. And when you start a business, it's a business. Okay. Get with a CFO early on. And you don't have to have a full-time person. You can contract someone, but get books from day one. You brought in $100 this month and you've lost $1,000. Get it documented. Know where your money's going. I remember, 1 month, my first business, not being able to make payroll. I thought I had a certain amount of money in the bank. I didn't know what was going out. And then my one employee said, hey, can I get paid this week? And I was like, yeah, sure. We got all this money in the bank. And I logged in and the account was negative.
Right.
And I remember putting my head down on the table because I also had a family and I had a newborn at the house. And I just put my head down on my desk and I started crying. And I remember my one employee, luckily, was my sister. She said, what's wrong? And I was like, I thought I had all this money in the bank. And we brought in all this money, but it's all gone. And I remember how awful I felt. Not for me, I could live off of fumes, but for her family, for my wife and my son at the time. Like, what a stupid, moronic thing to do. And all I had to do was pay an accountant to keep track of things, or a bookkeeper.
Yep. What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
I would say documenting what all of the different roles are in the business to be able to scale. And I don't think I'm alone in this. Until we started creating checklists for each of the particular roles in our business. And before we created an exact roadmap of what the business looked like presently and what it could look like a year, 2, 3, 4 years away, depending on the amount of sales we wanted to project. Until we were able to do that, we couldn't really scale. Once we clearly defined job descriptions and documented it, once we created simple workflows and documented, and I say simple, I mean bullet points, guys. You don't have to create 600-page user manuals. But once we did that, that's when we were able to see explosive growth, because we needed more business development. Here was the job description of the business development guy. We went to the recruiting guy. The recruiting guy took that document, hired the right people. We knew the numbers, the formula, and you can grow a thing.
Yeah.
It's difficult to do when you're working in your business and you are the guy just swinging the hammer at your construction company. You have to kind of leave your business a little bit and look at it to be able to grow it. Otherwise, it just doesn't seem to work.
Yeah, totally agree. What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
I would say I'm a sales and marketing guy at heart, right? So I like offense.
Mm-hmm.
I love scoring points, right? That's where you get, if you're a sales and marketing guy, it's a dopamine hit every time a customer comes in the door.
Yep.
I don't like playing defense. And defense for me are things like managing financials, doing payroll and clerical work and compliance work, and any of that type of stuff. The back office, I hate it.
Yep.
And I would say if you are like me and you like playing offense, you better from day one hire a defense fast. Your back office, your CFO, your chief operations officer. They don't even have to be fancy titles, but get your defense lined up, and then go score points all day. Go have a blast. If that's what you want to do, go for it. But that's the stuff I can't stand, and I'm not good at it either. So what's the point?
What do you love most about growing a small business?
I love, this is going to sound crazy, but my favorite thing to do is whenever the day everyone gets paid. I love it. I don't know. There's like this thrill when everyone's paid. I love it more than me getting paid. I like way more. It's not even like, I don't even care if I get paid sometimes. I just love knowing that all of these amazing people showed up. They've done this awesome job. They've moved the needle in the business. They moved the needle in other people's business, and they were rewarded for it, and they're satisfied, and it's affecting their ability to buy sneakers for their kid to go to school. I always think of that. Like when I was a kid, my dad had the means, when it was time for me to get school sneakers, he was able to buy me anything I wanted. And I was super blessed in that way. And I want to make sure that, one of my staff members, one of my teammates can do the same for their family. So for me, that's the biggest thing. I don't, when we do recruiting calls or interviews, we tell people, if you're looking for a job, this is not the right place. We want people that want to come here and have careers.
Yep.
If you're a team member that we value, if your job becomes obsolete at the company, we don't let you go. We make another job.
Yep.
We make another role for you. Those are the types of people I like to work with.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
The biggest mindset shift was to stop selling time. I'm going to quote Grant Cardone. I don't know. It was like a random Instagram post, I think, but it really did resonate with me. And he said something along the lines of, there are people that are selling their time, but I rather buy time. And I'm going to buy as much time as possible. Okay. I'm going to buy your time and I'm going to resell it to the marketplace. And I thought that was very powerful.
Yeah.
You have attorneys, for example, they hire they get hired at a high hourly rate, but at the same time, they still have to sell their time to the marketplace, where an entrepreneur doesn't can have an infinite hourly rate, because his ability to buy other people's times and sell it to the marketplace and create a sense of security and camaraderie and value and brand. So people want to sell their time into that company. And if you do that, you look at Jeff Bezos, what's his hourly rate?
Yeah.
I mean, he has the same 24 hours I have, same 24 hours you have. What's the difference between me, you, and Jeff Bezos? At this point, he's just buying more time. He's buying robots' time. He's buying human time. That's the only difference. So I want to buy time. And credit to Grant Cardone for that, because that was a life changer for me, at least business wise.
Yeah. What is the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Win the day early.
Yep.
I hired a life coach, Adam, wakingearly.com. Okay, Adam Reed, amazing guy, right? And I jumped into this. I read a Tony Robbins thing, and Tony Robbins said my favorite book was Morning Miracle. It was a short little book. I read it. It resonated with me, because I was never a morning guy.
Yep.
But then I started noticing waking up 5, 6 o'clock in the morning and getting a couple of early wins, priming the pump, as my life coach would say. That was a game changer. And you don't notice it at first, but over the course of 6 months and a year, you notice you're up early, you're praying, you're working out, you're, I don't know, writing your blog. There may be 4 or 5 things you can do early. Have a cup of coffee with your spouse, or just stare out into the abyss, the woods behind your house, and just do nothing for a little bit and unwind early when the rest of the world is already part of, or they're still asleep. That, I think, is a game changer. And I noticed this too. Go to the gym at 5 a.m. Notice the cars in the parking lot.
Yep.
They're way nicer than the cars in the parking lot at 9.
That's a good point.
So I would say that one.
Jump over to growersmallbusiness.com and leave your details to get a short 2-minute email I send on Fridays to help small business owners like you become better leaders. I include some reading or professional development resources I've discovered in the last week. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Yeah, I think one of the big mistakes I've made was the big mistakes with people, I would say, is not giving them clear job descriptions.
Yep.
Okay. If you want someone to come into your business and create, you're hiring an entrepreneur. They don't want to work for you. They're entrepreneurs. You, as the entrepreneur, need to give every new hire coming on board a very clear description of what they're going to be doing, okay, from the interview and on, okay? And that can change, and you can add that caveat. And if you want them to do some creating and some thinking and some strategy, that should also be in the job description. But don't expect them to show up and create the position. Yes. I don't think it's fair to ask, because they need clear direction. And obviously, you have to have some flexibility, of course, because job roles change, businesses change, for sure. But that's been my biggest mistake, not doing that early on, and I learned from it.
What are some of the things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
Setting expectations early on, very early on. One of the ways I did that with Key Credit early on is, I noticed, I'm not the normal guy that goes to work. I can be a little intense, and it can turn a lot of people off if they weren't expecting it. So what I would do is, when I'd hire someone, I would say, hey, you have some prerequisites, and I'd have them read a few books. One of the books I'd have people read was Tim Grover's Relentless. For anyone that's ever read that book, Tim Grover is a psychopath trainer that trained guys like Michael Jordan, Dwayne Wade, Kobe Bryant, and he has a system which is, cleaner is the upper echelon of top performers. Then you have below that closers, and then you have below that coolers. And I would tell people, hey, if you're going to come here and sell, if you're going to come here and work hard, I'm looking for cleaners. This is who I am. I apologize in advance if it doesn't work for you. It's cool. And as a result, we built this culture of guys and girls that were killers. Killers, absolute killers. And when I say killers, I mean it as a compliment. Hardworking people that cared and wanted to go to the next level for the company, for their customers, for their teammates. So I'd say set the expectation very, very early on. Don't tell people this is going to be, hey, you're going to be playing ping pong. You got a ping pong table in the lobby, but then when people get there, no one ever plays ping pong. You know what I mean? If that's your thing, set it early on. If your thing is the opposite, set it early on from the interview. Warn people, this is going to be the worst job you've ever had. Are you in?
Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah. Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Horribly. I am not the poster child for balance. Horribly, I would say. There have been a few hacks that have helped me. I would say in my 20s, horribly. In my 30s, a lot better. So things like cutoffs. I've forced myself to take vacations in my 30s. And I noticed that, and I take long vacations. I go to Greece for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks now. 6 weeks I've taken straight. And I really haven't worked with the exception of checking in. I would say schedule out vacations, schedule out times where you log off. The cool thing is when you schedule a shut-off time at the end of the night or a shut-off for the weekend or a shut-off because of the vacation, you end up doing a lot more leading up to that point. It's like the game is ending in 30 seconds. You can score a lot of points in those 30 seconds. So schedule your time off and do it often. If you're going to go hard at work and that's who you are, go hard. Don't stop it, but schedule the time off and go hard at fun. Go hard at everything else. That's who you are.
How much professional development have you invested in yourself over the years?
As much as I can. I probably get through a book every week to 2 weeks.
Wow, that's great.
Via audio. So I guess I'm cheating.
Yeah.
But I'm on, that's what I do in the gym or in the car.
Yep.
As much coaching as I can. I'm a firm believer in coaching. So, I do social media for clients. I have a social media coach that coaches me on social media. Okay. And I'm sure he's got a coach. I've got a life coach. I use business coaches. If you look at the guys operating at the highest level possible, I give you that example of Tim Grover. Michael Jordan had a whole coaching staff at the Chicago Bulls. He went and hired another coach. He paid out of his own pocket for an entire company to coach him, in addition to the coaching the organization was giving him.
Yeah.
So I would say if you are not just an entrepreneur, but you have a position at any company and you are not investing in yourself, don't expect the company that you're working for to invest in you.
Yeah.
Do it yourself. It's you.
Well, that was the next question, mentors or coaches. So have you had mentors?
I've had mentors, but I can say I haven't seeked them out in a very formal way. Like you hear some people like, I'm going to call this guy. He's rich. I'm going to ask him to be my mentor. I haven't done that. I've been blessed. My dad was an entrepreneur. In my community, particularly in the Greek community, there's a high percentage of self-employed people. So, you go to a church or a Greek festival, you look a little to your left, a little to your right. There's a guy that's got a business.
Yep.
And there's a varying degree of success in the community. So it hasn't been hard to find mentors for me.
Yep. Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
That I haven't done. I think that's something that I'm going to look into though.
you're one of the few we've had on that's exited a business operationally. Key Credit. Do you want to maybe any advice for the audience about how you fire yourself day to day, like that?
How I fire myself?
Yeah, how do you get the hell out of there day to day? And
I'll tell you, I did this with Key Credit, and that's how I kind of delegated myself out of a job. It was an experiment. So every day I used a journal, a basic journal, and some of you are using Outlook or Gmail tasks, whatever you're using. You jot down your tasks, right? And if you come from a sales environment, especially, you get a dopamine rush every time you get a client or sell someone or check off a task. What you don't realize is you're super dopamine influenced. Dopamine influences everything, right? So what I would suggest is write down that task list. Be aware that you enjoy those tasks and you're going to give them away. And every day, find the easiest, stupidest thing you're doing throughout your day.
Yep.
Put someone's name next to it and ask someone to do it. Just anyone. Find someone in your company, a virtual assistant. You could sometimes replace a task with a piece of software. A little app will do it for you. And then when you do it, check that off. Dopamine hit. Right? And then find the next task. Go. And the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Okay. And then I reference Michael Jordan, right? Michael Jordan had someone prepare his sneakers, give him towels, squirt water into his mouth, right? He had someone to do everything because his job was scoring points. That's it. Okay. If you have 2 or 3 things you do at your company every day that's the equivalent of scoring, keep doing those.
Yeah.
Rock it. Be like Jordan. Score points. Don't do anything else. Okay. Delegate out every single thing and enjoy that process. And when you get down to those 1 or 2 things, be okay with the empty space. Fill it in with more of those couple of things you do every day and be cool with it. And guess what? You might have some free time. You don't have to go and start another business like I did. Take a vacation. It's an okay thing to do. Volunteer. I give you permission. You are not a sinner. You will not go to hell if you enjoy some of that time off. You will be okay.
Right, Nick. Well, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Finding your next customer.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
10X by Grant Cardone.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
I mean, your podcast for sure.
You've been on Dumas Entrepreneurs on Fire a couple of times. Was that
Entrepreneurs on Fire has been a great resource. I've really enjoyed Ed Milet's podcast as well. Podcasts have been, I would say, podcasts are the gateway drug to everything good, every good resource for entrepreneurs. So get into podcasts.
Totally. It's still growing. The proportion of people listening to podcasts is still quite small. One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
I'm going to give you a tech tool, actually, a little technology. I would say Zapier. It's a simple little tool for those of you that haven't used it, but you can automate little tiny things like if someone fills in a form on your website, they can get a text. It can put that data in your CRM. Don't underestimate these little things. The little things a piece of automation like that can do, it was, you used to hire people to do those things. So Zapier is this way to automate a lot of the tasks in your entrepreneurial journey.
Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day 1 of starting out?
It's going to be okay. I promise.
That's great, Nick. Thank you so much for your time today. I think the audience got a lot of value out of what you shared with us. Key Credit, amazing growth. RealTop now is your focus and your passion. Congratulations to you and the both teams to where you've got the both businesses, and look forward to checking in a year or two to see where RealTop's at and having you back on.
Thanks, Troy.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.